There was a half-drunk cup of tea on the kitchen counter. Still steaming. Still warm. The house was too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes your skin tighten before your brain catches up. I called out once, twice. No answer. The garage door had been locked from the inside. The backyard untouched. But the basement door was cracked open. I went down slowly, each step heavier than the last. And then I saw him. My son. Face pale. Body crumpled near the boiler. Knees scraped, a red welt forming just above his brow. Unconscious. For a moment, everything inside me stopped. My lungs, my legs, the blood in my veins. Then I screamed. I dropped to my knees, shaking him. Liam. Liam, baby, wake up. Can you hear me? And behind me, like a shadow that didn't belong, I heard the sound of a spoon clinking gently against ceramic. I turned. There, at the top of the stairs, stood my husband, leaning on the railing.
Calm.
Serene. Tea in one hand. The same hand that once held our son on his first day of preschool. He defied my word, he said, like we were discussing chores. Actions meet consequences. You know that's how I handle things. I couldn't move. I couldn't even scream. My hands kept checking for a pulse, my eyes refusing to blink. Call a doctor if you want, he added casually. He'll be fine. This'll teach him.
I did.
Not because I believed him, but because I knew this wasn't the first time something had cracked behind his calm. When the doctor arrived, he moved with purpose. Checked my son's breathing. Monitored his pulse. Felt his head. His jaw tensed. Then, quietly, with a softness I hadn't expected, he turned to me and placed a hand on my arm. His voice dropped low, nearly a whisper. Ma'am, before your husband returns to this room, call the police. Immediately. The look in his eyes? I'll never forget it. Not fear. Not panic. Something colder. Something that said, this isn't the first boy I've seen like this.
But it better be the last.
I didn't hesitate. My hands shook as I dialed, but the fear in the doctor's voice overpowered everything. When the dispatcher picked up, I kept it short, just the truth, plain and cold. There's a child, my son. Unconscious. Possible assault. The man who did it is in the house. They asked if I felt safe. I lied. I said yes. Because if I said no, I knew they might move slower. When I ended the call, the doctor gave me a small nod. He stayed with my son. Bless him. Whispering steady reassurances into that broken quiet. I went upstairs. My husband was still at the kitchen table, tea now cold, phone in his hand. He looked up and smiled like we were just two tired parents on a Sunday afternoon.
He'll be fine, he said again.
You'll see. He's just like me, stubborn. I stood across the room from him, hands clenched, 100 things burning in my throat. I could have screamed. I could have thrown something. But I didn't. Because now I understood. This wasn't a sudden loss of temper. This wasn't a moment of anger. This was who he had become when no one was watching. And maybe who he always was. I called someone, I said quietly, just to be safe. He tilted his head. Over a fall? You're letting emotions cloud judgment again. That line. He always said it about my tears, about my instincts, about my warnings. And every time, I let it sink into my bones like guilt. But not today. Today, I heard something else beneath those words. Control. Justification.
Power.
I sat across from him, matching his stillness with mine, and whispered, You left a bruise. That's when he froze. Just slightly. A twitch behind the eye. A recalculation. And then sirens. Not close. But close enough. He stood too quickly. Tell them it was an accident, he said. Tell them he slipped. You were in the hospital for 3 days. You didn't see anything.
I stared at him.
Really stared. For the first time, I didn't see my husband. I saw the man my son was afraid to look in the eye. The knock was sharp. 3 beats. Firm. Final. My husband opened the door before I could move. His voice slipped into that smooth, polite tone he reserved for strangers. Officers. Is there a problem? The taller cop didn't answer right away. His eyes moved past my husband's shoulder, catching sight of the doctor crouched beside Liam, still unconscious, an oxygen mask now fitted across his face. Then his expression changed. "We got a call about a minor in medical distress," the officer said. "Step aside, sir." My husband didn't budge. "There's no emergency." He tripped. "Kids get hurt. The mother is emotional." That word again. Emotional. Weaponized like a scalpel, thin and sharp. But the officers were already stepping inside. The second one looked directly at me.
"Ma'am."
"Are you the one who called?" I nodded. My voice caught it first.
Then, yes.
I did. That's when the spell broke. My husband laughed, sharp, hollow. "You believe her? She wasn't even here. She just had surgery. She's recovering. She's not thinking straight." The taller officer ignored him, walked straight to the basement door. He looked down, saw the blood-streaked step, the corner where Liam had hit the wall. Then he glanced back. "Is this consistent with the trip?" he asked. The doctor stood up, removing his gloves slowly. His voice was calm, deadly calm.
"No."
"His injuries suggest direct force, not a fall." My husband's smile faded. "You're not a detective. You're just a medic. And you're just a man who thinks bruises don't tell stories." I'll never forget the way those words hung in the air, like the room itself inhaled. My husband turned to me then, the charm gone, the mask gone.
"Just eyes now. Cold. Calculating."
"I told you how I handle things," he whispered. "You made your choice."
But so had I.
"Officers," I said clearly, my voice louder now. "I'd like him removed from the home." They didn't wait. They asked him to sit. When he refused, they stepped in. Hands on arms. Calm. Practiced restraint. And suddenly, the man who used to call himself the head of the family was sitting on the front porch in handcuffs. Neighbors watched. The sirens had drawn a crowd. And all I did was close the door, slowly, finally. The house was quiet again. But it wasn't the same quiet. This one pulsed with something different. Relief, maybe. Or the absence of fear. Liam was transferred to the children's wing at the hospital that night. I rode in the front seat of the ambulance, while the doctor stayed in the back with him. My hands never stopped shaking. Not from panic, from the weight of what I hadn't seen sooner. At the ER desk, they gave me a clipboard full of forms. Medical releases. Statements. Questions. One asked, "Was this injury caused by someone you know?" I stared at the box. Then I checked yes. I wrote his name in full. Then I underlined it. The detective met me in a small room lined with children's art taped to the walls. She wasn't warm. She wasn't cold. Just steady. "We have some history on your husband," she said quietly. That stopped me. "History?" She nodded. "Reports from years ago. Sealed but flagged. A girlfriend. A sibling. Charges dropped. Nothing stuck. You weren't the first woman to call." My stomach twisted. I pressed a palm to my chest. "But I married him." She didn't answer. Just looked at me with those eyes that had seen too many women ask themselves the same thing. "Do you want to press full charges?" she asked. I looked through the glass window at my son. Tubes still in his nose. Then I thought of my husband's voice, calm, cool, cruel. Actions meet consequences. I turned back. "Yes," I said. And then, "I want the full weight of the system on his back." The detective nodded once, then handed me a card. "He'll probably try to contact you. Through friends. Family. Guilt." "I'm not listening," I said. And I meant it. The moment they filed the formal charges, a cold front moved through the entire house. His family called. His mother begged me to reconsider. "It was just a moment," she whispered. "No," I said. It was a mindset. Because moments pass. But mindsets dig in. I wasn't just protecting Liam now. I was burning the bridge he might one day walk back across. And I was lighting it from both sides. The subpoena arrived in a thick white envelope. My name on the front. The state seal embossed in gold. It didn't feel real until I held it. Until I saw his full name again, defendant, Michael E. Carr, typed in bold, like the man who once kissed my forehead goodnight was now just another case file. The court date was set for the following month. In the meantime, everything blurred. There were interviews, child services, a counselor who sat with Liam for 2 sessions and told me, softly, he's quiet, but not broken. You got him out in time. That sentence stayed with me. You got him out in time. I wanted to believe it, but courtrooms don't care about timing. They care about evidence. I sat across from lawyers in beige suits who kept asking me the same questions. Had I ever witnessed this behavior before? Did I have documentation? Why didn't I leave sooner? That last one always stung. As if love is a light switch. As if fear wears a name tag. But the worst part? The people I didn't hear from. Friends who had been at our wedding. His sister, who used to call me every Sunday. My own cousin, who messaged once to say, this is complicated, and then vanished into silence. It's funny how truth makes people uncomfortable, especially when it wears the face of someone they thought they knew. But for every voice that fell away, another one rose. Liam's school principal sent flowers. The nurse from the hospital left me a voicemail. Whatever you need, I'm here. And my father-in-law, who had flown back to base temporarily, emailed a single line. You're not standing alone in that courtroom. I'll be there. And I believed him, because strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it's just someone standing quietly behind you when the world tries to shake you loose. So, I printed everything. Photos, statements, medical notes, and placed them in a folder labeled Truth. Because that's what I was walking into court with. Not rage, not revenge, just truth. And that's more powerful than anything he ever raised his voice to say. The courtroom smelled like paper and old carpet. Nothing dramatic. Nothing like the movies. Just a place where lives got sorted into folders and facts. I sat at the front beside my lawyer. Hands folded. Shoulders still. Across the room, him. My husband. Blue suit. New haircut. Looking every bit the image of a man misunderstood. He wouldn't meet my eyes. When the judge entered, everyone stood. The quiet slammed down like a curtain. And then it began. They started with the incident report, the 911 call, the paramedic statement, then the doctor. Calm, precise, professional. He described the injuries, the bruising, how Liam's trauma didn't match a fall, how he saw fear in my son's eyes, even while unconscious. My husband's lawyer objected to emotional inference. The judge overruled it. Then came me. I stood, walked to the center, felt everyone's eyes on my spine. They asked me questions. I answered with facts. No theatrics. No tears. Just. I wasn't there when it happened, but I heard what he said after. He told me, actions meet consequences. I watched the jury shift. Some leaned forward. One shook her head. Then came the hardest part. The video. Not from the basement. From the baby monitor. Footage my husband didn't know was rolling, installed after Liam had started waking up with nightmares. There he was, standing over our son. Voice calm. You disobeyed. So you don't eat. My hands clenched. My jaw locked. The video stopped. Silence. And then for the first time he broke. Slouched forward. Elbows on the table. Face pale. It was over. Not legally. Not yet. But the image was burned now. Into the court. Into every eye that saw. This wasn't about whether he'd be charged. It was about the story finally being told. And no amount of silence could protect him from it anymore. The verdict came faster than I expected. 2 days. Not weeks. Not months. Guilty of misdemeanor child endangerment. Guilty of obstruction. Guilty of emotional abuse under civil statute. He wouldn't go to prison. But the sentence was clear. Probation. Mandatory counseling. No unsupervised contact with minors. And a full restraining order, filed in both mine and Liam's names. The judge didn't lecture. He didn't raise his voice. He just looked at my husband, the man who used to hold court at every dinner table, and said, "You broke something that will take this child years to unlearn. That will echo inside his trust. That is what you're being punished for." The gavel came down. And just like that, the man who once insisted on control had none left.
He looked at me then.
First time since the day he was cuffed. His mouth opened like he had something to say. But I stood, turned, and walked out. Outside the courthouse, my father-in-law was waiting. No uniform this time. Just jeans, a simple jacket, and a look I'll never forget. Not pride, not sympathy. Just quiet presence. He didn't ask what happened.
Didn't need to.
I hugged him, tighter than I ever had. And for the first time in months, I cried. Not because I was broken, because I had survived it. And so had Liam. That night, as I tucked my son into bed, he looked up and whispered, "Is he gone?" I nodded. "He's gone, sweetheart. And he's not coming back." He closed his eyes. And for the first time in a long time, he slept without flinching. There's a moment that comes long after the storm. Not with thunder, not with a crack. Just stillness. You look around the house and realize no one's holding their breath anymore. No one's walking on eggshells. No one's afraid of the silence. That's when you know it's over. I kept the folder labeled truth. Not to dwell, but to remember. Because forgetting is dangerous. Forgetting is how we let it happen again. Liam's bruises faded. The nightmare stopped. He laughs more now, not loud, but real. Like his chest finally trusts it won't be punished for joy. I changed the locks. I changed my number. I changed the way I measure love. It's not about grand gestures or empty apologies. It's about safety. It's about being able to say, "I'm scared," without being blamed for feeling it. Sometimes people ask how I got out. What finally pushed me? It wasn't the bruises. It wasn't the basement. It was the tea. Still warm on the counter. Still steaming, while my son lay unconscious just a few steps away. That image will stay with me longer than any gavel or sentence. Because in that moment, he wasn't a man. He was proof that calm can be cruel, and that evil doesn't always shout. Sometimes it drinks tea and calls it parenting. But not in this house. Not anymore. Here, we build again. Here, we breathe. Here, we choose softness and never call it weakness again.